have mercy, look at how the time goes.
And welcome everybody to the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. I am your host, John Allen, and today I have with me, who I think is a very interesting guy, Mr. Ferdinand Basson from South Africa. How you doing?
Thanks, John, for having me on the show.
Thanks for coming, man. For me, this is a little bit surreal. This is a little, it's kind of odd because I've known you through social media for quite some time. Well, a couple, 3 years, maybe 3.5 years. And that started just from me watching a few fights on the EFC. And there was something about the way you conducted yourself as a referee that I just thought it was cool. And there's also the fact, the way you're built. I'm a power lifter as well, as you know, and I was looking at you and I'm like, that guy looks like a power lifter. So I did a little research. I found out you were in fact a power lifter. And then I sent you the friend request on Facebook. And then since then, I've been lucky enough to I'm actually very entertained by the posts that you put out on social media. You're a very opinionated guy.
Yes, I don't think it's always a good thing to be that opinionated, but I'm a passionate guy as well, and sometimes you have to vent somewhere. And I guess Facebook is that, and it's not always good. I mean, I had a chat with one of my friends the other day, and he says, man, he thinks social media is divisive, because it gives the people a platform to post their opinions, and then it divides the people. And I think he's right in a certain way. But as I said, everybody's got an opinion. I guess I just post mine more regularly on social media than the rest.
Well, you pull no punches. You definitely say what's on your mind. I for one, like it. I think social media is both divisive, but it's also unifying. Yeah, of course, it's divisive if you disagree with a person. And in these days of social and political unrest, there's too much. It's okay to disagree, but why do you have to get mean? Why do you have to get nasty? Why does that lead to violence and hatred and whatnot? I like a good debate. I love when someone disagrees with me or when I disagree with them, and it can lead us into a new discussion. To me, that's enlightening. That enriches my life.
Coming back to what you mentioned in the beginning, the mixed martial arts and the EFC, it is the same temperament for me. Sport, you're a sportsman. I used to compete in sports as well. And it's a challenging thing, and you want to beat your competitor. We all know that. That's why we compete. Sometimes in powerlifting, you want to beat the you of yesterday.
Yes.
But I try and get my fighters because at the end of the day, you're still a human. You still have to go back to your family, and you've got all of that. When you walk into the cage, you need to be able to switch on, complete your task that you need to do, and it's violence. I mean, MMA, mixed martial arts, is violence.
Exactly, that's the whole point of it. Yeah.
It's controlled violence, and then once that bell goes, you switch it off again. And that's the same when you have a debate. When you sit with somebody, you don't have to be mean about it. You put your point, they put their point. Maybe, and if you have a rich and a rational debate, maybe you walk away there a more sound person than before you entered the debate.
Exactly.
And that's important. I'm not saying you're always going to agree, but at least you're going to walk away and say, listen, there is rational human beings out there that have a different perspective on this point that I have, and maybe I should just acknowledge that. Not even agree necessarily, but acknowledge that there is different viewpoints on this thing that I feel so strong about.
It's all about dialogue. I could disagree with everything that a Trump supporter believes in politically, but I can still learn something from that disagreement. I'm very curious about how that person thinks. How did they come to think the way that they do? What's their life experience? What led them to that point? And the only way you're going to get those questions answered is by having a dialogue with the person.
100%. And you will get, I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm in South Africa, and I'm a firm believer that loyalty starts at home. And I think as a country, we've got so much issues that trying to point out another country's issues is futile and downright insulting.
Yeah, I believe people should take care of their own house. And that puts me in somewhat of a dilemma as an American citizen living in Norway. I feel I'm in a weird situation, and it's kind of it's kind of difficult to take in all of this, and it's kind of difficult to find out how do I use my platform to make a difference.
Yes. No, and I can fully understand that. So, I know through the sport of mixed martial arts, I was fortunate enough to have traveled a bit with it. I've made a lot of friends in the USA that's still in the USA, and all of them, every single one of them is a nice guy that I've met, or nice female for that matter. Let's not be gender specific.
Yeah.
And some of them are Trump supporters, and some of them are non-Trump supporters. What's funny is you get that patch in the middle. That some of the guys will say, "Listen, I support this view, but I don't support Trump. I support his view on this matter, but I don't support Trump." Where the non-Trump supporters, and I'll probably get a massive amount of flack for that, they will vehemently oppose every single thing that he said. And I think it's a passion thing. I think they are so passionate about their country and about the wrongs that's happening in their country that they, just see Trump as a target and not necessarily his actions. That's the issue.
I understand that. I try not to look at President Trump as a target, but I do see him as a catalyst for a lot of the ugliness that's going on, because messaging is quite important. And when you're the leader of a country, and this has nothing to do with Democrat or Republican, it has to do with decency. You have to have a certain amount of decency as the leader of a nation, because you set the tone for the entire country to follow. And he has not set a tone of decency. He has not set a tone of dialogue. And that is the biggest problem, I think.
I fully agree with you. I mean, he's definitely not diplomatic. Let's just get it that outright. So he's not your typical politician. And I think a lot of people, when he got voted in, saw that and saw, listen, I'm tired of politicians. This guy is a straight talker. Let's get him in. Yeah. And that's what he was. He was a straight talker. The problem is also, it doesn't, well, I can't say it doesn't, but he's got very little tact. And like you say, in the position that he's in, he should almost mediate his responses. I mean, yes. I'm opinionated, but I'm a nobody. He is, well, for all intents and purposes, he's the leader of the free world. He should have a little bit more tact, I think.
He should. I think a lot of it, though, has to do with him having a lack of advisors around him. I mean, everybody's either quit or he's fired them. I don't think he doesn't have that voice of reason in his ear. He's fired them all, or they've all quit.
I don't think he doesn't have that. I think he's had. I think he doesn't listen to them. I think
he has before. For example, General Mattis, who quite recently came with some rather pointed comments about this current presidency. He was a man of reason, but things got to the point where he had to resign.
Yes.
So.
I think those guys that, feel so strongly about the country and, not necessarily oppose Trump, but oppose some of his ideas, then get sidelined and, then they decide, well, I'm not part of this anymore. Let me rather quit, or let me rather resign, or they are pushed to the point where they would resign. So, and to run a country, I think it's not the easiest thing in the world.
Oh God, I wouldn't want to do it. I can barely run my own household. So
exactly, and I've got a little 8-year-old that's running right every single day compared to other countries.
Hey, let me ask you a little bit about South Africa. Now South Africa has fascinated me ever since I was a child. I'm 51 years old now, so I can remember the times of apartheid and whatnot, and the protests and everything. So that was my first image, my first view, my first opinion of South Africa. And then I get a little older, I get a little more educated, I do my own research, and then I realize that there are some nuances there. I have some powerlifter friends who, now this is going back some years. I want to say maybe it was in the early 90s. One of the IPF World Championships was in South Africa. I believe it was in
2004.
Even before that. Even before that. If we're going back before that, this is old school stuff. I don't know. I don't remember, but somewhere in South Africa. And they were talking about how they had to have security personnel because it was just too dangerous for them to be out and about in the city. And again, I can't remember. I want to say it was Durham.
Durban.
I'm sorry, Durban. I'm sorry,
yeah.
Durban, of course. I'm a great podcast host. Durban. And so then that again cemented some of my thoughts about what it's like in South Africa. What is it like out there today? You know, you're a white guy in South Africa, and with that comes a history. With that comes a certain amount of, I don't know, baggage, possibly.
For sure. I mean, I think we're a country with many nations.
It's quite diverse, actually.
Yes. Exactly. So I think we're the only country in the world that's got 11 listed languages as official languages.
Yeah.
So there you've got a fair idea already what's going on with regards to different cultures.
How do you find unity in that?
Man, the one thing, and Nelson Mandela said back in the day, sport is one of the unifiers, and it is, but it's also lately been a divisive tool. But we'll get onto that. Yeah. I remember back in the day, I was a youngster, still primary school, going to secondary school. Yeah. Because I matriculated, I finished school in 1994, the same year that the first free and fair elections was held in South Africa. So just to give you an idea where I was placed.
Okay.
So, I mean, I can tell you can talk to most South Africans. Even white, let's say most white South Africans, and they all will tell you that apartheid was wrong. I can't think of anybody that will say apartheid is right.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of them will say, yes, I don't like the idea how they released or how they let go of apartheid. Some of them want to do it a little bit more gradually or whatever, but they all agree on one thing, that it was wrong and it eventually should have stopped. So there was no denying that.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's where we get off. But I think something for me, I've got a background in the social sciences, so my eyes got open a little bit when we studied that as well. And for me, it's not about a background, it's not about color, it's not about anything apart from that. It is about the person. So nothing should stop me from talking to the person, getting to know the person. And that's the important bit for me, not color per se. And I think a lot of the white citizens in South Africa are at the point where they say, listen, we just want to get on with this. We want to get on with life. We don't care if we've got a black neighbor, a white neighbor, an Indian neighbor. If we get along with him, we get along with him, not because he's white, not because he's black, but because we get along with the person, and let's get on.
And that is typical of South Africans. It's not this. Some people have the impression that apartheid is over and done with, but there's still a lot of unrest between the races.
I'll tell you this much. I read an interesting statistic yesterday, and it's just to compare South Africa versus the USA. There is currently more black people in prisons in the USA than there is in South Africa.
And that's very telling. That's very telling. Yes, yeah.
Exactly. So, and if you look at the makeup, I think demographic-wise, the USA is sitting more or less at about 13% black.
Correct.
Or 13%, 13% black. And it's very difficult to say black. When in South Africa, we've got a term colored, and colored is a specific, different kind of race, if you want to go compared to black. So you've got colored, you've got Indian, you've got Asian. Now, Indian in most other countries fall under Asian, but not in South Africa.
It's something totally within itself, yeah.
Exactly. So, as a fact, I mean, South Africa's got the biggest Indian community outside of India. And that comes back from, that comes back from the old colonial days, where the, England brought in, well, they weren't called slaves, they were called indentured laborers. In other words,
yeah.
So that's how they got in. So we've got all of these different ones. So when you say colored, it is mostly referred to a community basically in Cape Town, or that's where it originated, where it was not black people per se. Originally, they were the original inhabitants of South Africa. So you've got all of these different color groups. Where in America, you've got white, you've got black, and I think you've got Hispanic and Asian. I think
that's pretty much it. Yeah, and Native American.
Oh, sorry, Native American.
Yeah, that's pretty much
Indian.
it. Yeah. Not Indian.
So in South Africa, you've got all of this, but even to go back, I mean, when we say colored, when you say white, if you go back in the genealogy, I can tell you there's not many people that is pure Indian, pure white, pure colored.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
looking at my own background, for example, I'm on the outside, I'm going to be characterized as black, but there's much more than that in our bloodline. And then especially in my children, with my wife being a white Norwegian, of course.
Yes.
So South Africa is kind of like me in a nutshell. It's just mixed with quite a bit and a lot of different,
yes. So I would say it's not about the color of the skin. When it comes to identifying, it's about your heritage, your background, your culture.
I see.
So you will find, and in South Africa, and it sounds like we're extremely racist because we're talking about color, but I guess it's
no, I understand.
Trying to define.
No, and my listeners understand, and if they don't, then they're not worthy to be listeners. They understand. Yeah.
So just to give you a background, so my wife is Indian. Okay, number one. So I've got friends in Cape Town, and it's two brothers. The one is dark skin, the other one is lighter skin, and then I've got another friend as well. So those two brothers identify themselves as colored.
Okay.
And then my friend that I've known from school from a very young age is white, or would be characterized as white. But when we went down, and I took my wife down to Cape Town, I didn't tell her who is white and who's colored. I just told them exactly and she couldn't identify who's who.
Okay.
So she was like, I thought he was colored and he was white. I said, no, and that's why skin tone, shouldn't play a role at all. Culture, background, behavior, that's the important things that should be a divisive or deciding factor when it comes to, do I like a person or not.
And that's very well said. That's what I base my whether or not I like a person, whether or not I can get along with a person, is how they behave. How are they treating me? How do I see them treating others? Because that's 100%. Important also. I don't want you to be kind to my face, but then I see you being an ass to other people. Exactly. That doesn't work.
Yes. I mean, there's the old adage of, I always look how people treat a waiter in a restaurant.
Yes.
And that's exactly it.
Yeah.
There is nothing less humane than being a janitor or a cleaner than being the CEO. They are all humans. Yes, they've got different functions in society, but they're all humans, and they should all be treated with decency, at least. At least decency. You don't have to love everybody, but at least some decency when treating them.
Very well said. Very well said. So your wife is Indian. Now, how many generations has her family been in South Africa?
I think her grandmother was born here. The previous, so her great-grandparents came from India.
Okay. That just surprises me that South Africa has the highest populations of Indians outside of India. I would have always thought that would be Great Britain that would have the highest population.
Yeah. Funnily enough, London itself, and I'm now talking on a country which I don't have a lot of knowledge, but what I have, discovered that far is that London itself, the city, has got a lot of Indians, but the UK itself, not as much. Not as much.
Freddie, can I interrupt you 1 second?
No problem.
No, this is important, Seb. You got to call. He's been trying to call me. I'm going to write his number down here. I'm sorry about this, Freddie. We just have to, to give some information to my wife. And I'm just going to let this be part of the podcast. I always tell people they're going to get the real organic me. So when things like this happen, I just keep recording. You see the number there. I got some powerlifting equipment delivered by Alaiko, and there was a problem with the order.
Oh, so lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you, I've been I don't know. How do I put this? There was a while at the beginning of the isolation from Corona where it didn't bother me that much. It was actually nice to take a break from training.
Especially with the injuries that
Exactly. So a couple weeks go by, and then I said, okay, it's time to start moving around. But the gyms were so close, so I started doing body weight exercises out in the garage. And that was going great, but then I got demotivated. And I stopped doing that. And then I was fortunate enough to get into a good deal with Alico. Yeah, my wife says hi, by the way. My wife says hi. And I was fortunate enough to get into a good deal with Alico. So the first delivery of the equipment came a couple of days ago, and I couldn't be happier. It's I feel like it's life-changing to be able to go back and power lift a little bit. Even though I'm limited, I'm very limited with what I can do because of the shoulder. But just to have a competition rack, just to have an Alico bar, and it's.
So the funny thing is when we hit lockdown, I've got my own mixed martial arts gym, and I'm fortunate enough that this mixed martial arts gym is in a big commercial gym. So, I'm in the gym every single day.
Yeah.
So when this lockdown happened, it was very easy for me to go to the gym, bring some of the equipment back home and say, okay, let's go on with life as normal.
Yeah.
But then I decided, listen, as a personal trainer or trying to help people at home training as well, I should limit myself to the point where I don't have that kind of equipment, because it's so easy to say. It is so easy to tell the guy, do push-ups, do exactly like you said. You get frustrated because it's just not the same. So I decided, no, I need to do something at home with something that you can put in a crate and be able to have a workout from there. And one of the things that I have done over this lockdown period is widen my knowledge about how you can train with elastics, how you can train basically out of the boot of your car. Don't get me wrong, it is never going to be the same as powerlifting.
No, but it's better. But it's better than nothing.
And it's definitely better than nothing. And if I look at being able to service my clients or service my athletes, I would be able to do something for them that would suit them perfectly. So yes, they could use weights as well as alternative, but this would be enough to get them in the shape that they need to be for their sport or for their needs.
Now you sound like a very good trainer, because a lot of trainers would kind of try to be the hard ass and insist that their clients continue with the same kind of program or as close to it as they can, even though there's the coronavirus, and would maybe berate their clients because they're not doing what they're supposed to. But you kind of took it down to the level of reality, and you're laying it out there that people can adjust what they do based on the equipment that they have available during the crisis here.
I'll tell you this. So, and you will know my feelings on the coronavirus. Myself, I do not fear coronavirus. I think I'm not saying I'm stupid, but I feel my immune system should
strong enough to fight it off.
Yeah. But I do believe, and I do know, and I've got clients that are severe asthmatics. So just because I don't have a fear or I don't feel threatened about it, doesn't mean the people, in this case, my clients, do not feel threatened.
Right.
And I think we're going to go a long way with this epidemic, where people will be safe in the house or feel safe in the house and do not feel safe going to pubs, going to commercial gyms, going to big stage venues. And I know you do your stand-up routines and you do music as well. So those things will change. I can tell you now.
Oh, absolutely.
For the future,
absolutely.
It will definitely change.
Yeah.
So for me, it was able to not just during lockdown, but after lockdown, to be able to service a client that feels, I do not want to go out to a commercial gym, or people that feel, listen, I do not have the time to go out to a commercial gym, but I do have an hour at home. And if somebody's willing to come to me and train me at home or show me what to do at home, I am willing to do that.
Well, that's a combination of good business sense, but also compassion. You're understanding that other people have more fear of the coronavirus than what you do, and then the good business sense is that you are simply giving them an offer so that you can still help them, even though they have fear to the point where it's changing their training habits. That's just that's just a smart move by you.
I think for me it's the way future gyms are going to be.
Things are changing. I look at how things are with music. I wonder if the main concert scene is going to be live streaming from now on.
Yeah,
people have had to do that,
Yeah.
One thing, you mentioned my stand-up. I've gotten so many offers, potential bookings to do stand-up live streaming, and I've said no to that every time. I have to have an audience there. I can't do stand-up and laugh by myself. I have to see that person's reaction. So who knows what's going to happen with stand-up. But yeah, when it comes to music and the whole in the training business and all that stuff, there's this permanent change. I think change.
Well, I think I feel the same way that you feel about stand-up. I feel about training, especially in martial arts. A lot of people switched over to the Zoom platform and interactive training, and I think it's great to have a short video clip to explain a technique. I think that's great. But as a replacement for teaching, very difficult.
Yeah, it's not
like
the same.
You said, you need that interaction. I mean, if you think about it, if you have to teach somebody a proper squat over a video format, it's going to be very. I'm not saying it's impossible.
It can be done, but there's so many things that come in the way of optimal training, of optimal instruction. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the platforms that we've got at the moment is not feasible to do it. I'm not saying in future it won't be. All I'm saying is at the moment it is not feasible. The normal platforms that the people at home will use.
Yeah, somebody's out there trying to think of something new. I'm sure Elon Musk. Who knows what that guy's going to come up with when it comes to some new type of I don't know, maybe some sort of virtual where people can connect virtual, where you feel like you actually are there and you're seeing who knows what's going to come.
Elon Musk also a funny character. One that he was born in South Africa.
Yes,
so every South African claims the rights on Elon Musk.
Oh, I knew him.
Yeah. So he's one of the South African heroes. But with regard to the interaction and whatever, there's now people that do surgeries across the world. So in other words, you've got a robot on the one side of the world and a surgeon sitting on the other side of the world doing surgery. So I'm definite that in future, yes, you will be able to, but the normal platforms I think we've got at the moment is still lacking a lot.
Absolutely. But I think that technology will catch up with the situation eventually. It always does.
For sure.
So it's going to be exciting to see what happens, but I just hope that it doesn't take the human element out of it, because again, with stand-up and especially with music, I have to have that feedback. I'm going to sing. I'm going to sing better if I can feel that feeling from them. I'm going to sing better. So I don't know. Well, we just have to wait and say. Give a call to Elon Musk. You know him, don't you? Give him a call.
Yeah. We were at school together.
Let me ask you. When did you get into? What did you get into first? Was it bodybuilding and strength training, or was it martial arts?
So my background when it comes to sport, I am not the tallest of guys. I think we share that characteristic. So I used to play a little bit of rugby at school, and it was a great sport, but I never had the stature to compete in the rugby at a higher level.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to be active. That was always something that it's probably something that got passed down from my brother. So I decided when I was at university, I'm going to do triathlons.
Okay.
So in Cape Town in South Africa, wintertime is cold, windy, wet. So summertime's great to train triathlon, but in wintertime, you can't train outside.
Yeah.
So then I hit the gym, and I started enjoying the gym. And over a period of time, for 6-7 months, I was in the gym. And then one of my friends came to me and says, "Listen, but why don't you compete in bodybuilding?" I said, "No, man, I'm training for triathlons." He says, "But you have packed on so much muscle from just this little period that you've trained. I think you will actually do well in bodybuilding."
Now, how old were you at this time?
That was about 1920. That was about, so then what happened is I went to go and compete in my first few bodybuilding courses, and it went well. I think I must go and check in my cupboard. I've got National Colors Junior. for bodybuilding. So that was I think at that stage, under 23. We're now going back a couple of years. So, and I enjoyed it, but I also realized it is a lifestyle. Bodybuilding, it is a big lifestyle, and I've still got friends that compete in it, and I still know a lot of people on the scene, but it is a lifestyle change. And I was at the point where I'm telling myself, listen, I don't know if I want to do this lifestyle. And I remember I was at one contest where, I won't say I was robbed, but there was some funny things with regards to the placing. But my one friend, who eventually became a very high level bodybuilder, got robbed on judging, and I was like, bugger this! I am done with people sitting in front of judging on something. I'm switching over to powerlifting. And my friend said to me, "You come to powerlifting. We've seen the weights that you handle in the gym. With a little bit of effort, you can go to powerlifting." Then I did powerlifting. Eventually, my weight ballooned up to a massive weight. I couldn't run on the beach. I couldn't because I walked around at 123 kilos, not necessarily fat, but too much for my joints.
That is a lot of weight for your height. It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was strong, I still had some of my biggest weights that I pulled was at that weight. So I was happy there. But then I realized, this will impact my life further on. And I went back to one of my friends who I used to do martial arts with. And he actually also did bodybuilding, but left very early on.
Okay.
And I went back to him. His name was Rico Hutting. Went back to him. I said, listen here, I've done Muay Thai before, but now where I used to compete Muay Thai, mid-70s, 80 kilos, now I'm walking around way over 100 kilos. I can't just do Muay Thai anymore. But my body is now not perfect for that anymore. So he said, come, let's do this jiu-jitsu thing. And it was brand new at that. Yeah. And I remember he was only a blue belt back then. But he was the only blue belt that we had in Cape Town. Okay. So we started training with him, and he's a phenomenal athlete, very good a wrestler as well, and that's where I started in the sport. And then I realized at 123, no matter how good my cardio is, you will not get to the third round of that. And then eventually started cutting down, and I think my last fight that I competed in was 112 kilos.
Okay.
Since then, I've dropped quite a bit. I'm walking around at about 107 now because I'm an old man and I've got kids that I need to play with in the garden and stuff. So,
hey, man, don't call yourself old, because I think I'm a little bit older than you. So you're going to have me questioning myself.
It's not always about chronological age. It's sometimes about mileage. And I think my mileage is too high.
Yeah. Well, it's time to park this car in the garage and let that mileage stay the same for a while.
It's a classic. It's now a classic. Don't drive it as often as you used to.
So you jump into the world of jiu-jitsu. You have a few competitions. What is it that led you to being a referee, or what's the proper term? Judge or referee?
Official.
Yeah. What led you to being an official for the MMA?
So the funny thing is, I became an official, and I think the federation is now defunct. The IFBB.
Yes.
IFBB. So I was official for them as well.
Okay.
For bodybuilding. Yeah. It's just when I do something, I completely immerse myself in it. It's just the way I am. Yeah. So, I will not do bodybuilding if I don't get the diet and all of that and study that. And so it was the same. When it came to bodybuilding, I was like, okay, well, these guys are going to judge me. I need to know what they're going to judge me on. So that's what happened. So the same
Very
thing.
Smart. That's a good strategy. Yeah.
So when I went into mixed martial arts, I was like, okay, so I need to know exactly what I could do and what I can't do, and what's the limits and where can I push the limits with regards to rules. And then, as I said earlier, with regards to mileage, I got injured in training, and my coach at that stage said to me, listen, well, can you still walk? I said, I can still walk, but, there's no kicking happening with this leg. He says, well, we're short of a referee. You know the rules. Why don't you come in a referee? So, well, I still love the sport. It's not like let's do it. And I think that was 2009. 2008, 2009, that then happened. And it was a small show. I refereed. I enjoyed it. I'm like, oh, it's great. I'm still at least part of the sport. And at that stage, I had to go for a knee operation. Went for the knee op, came back, and I'm like, my knee's not the same.
Yeah.
I'm now in my mid-30s. I'm never going to be a UFC star, so I need to make tough calls at the moment. And I'm like, I'm still going to train, but I'm not going to compete anymore. So, but I still want to be part of the sport. So that's how I got into officiating.
So that means you have true passion for the sport. If you couldn't just drop out of it, you have to stick with it in the form of being an official then.
It is something that happened when I was competing, and at that stage in South Africa, but in the world as well, the rules of the sport was not clearly defined, and it was different from one competition to another competition.
Yes,
and
I remember those days. Yeah.
Yes, and I was like, these athletes, number one, train exceptionally hard. Number two, they put their life on the line, and in those days was amateur shows for us. They put their life on the line for zero money. At the least they deserve is a competent official, and that's why I said, okay, well, there's still some of my friends competing in this. Let me become a competent official, and maybe we can get some other competent officials and lift the sport out of it.
I see.
And that's where we went. So,
well, you're part of a big organization, the EFC. I mean, that covers all of Africa. That's a lot of potential fighters.
I think if you look at the UFC at the moment, there's a lot of African-born fighters coming through now. Kamaru Usman, a brilliant example. So there's a lot of them coming through, and I think Africa is an untapped market with regards to athletic ability. There's certain countries like the Congo. I've got a few of my friends, Congolese and fighters. Man, they have got genetics.
Yeah, you guys have quite a few Congolese fighters in the EFC, and yes, there seems to be something special about them. They have a certain level of athleticism. They have a certain amount of ferocity and focus that of course, you have other fighters who have that as well, but it just seems to be more prevalent in the fighters from the Congo. It's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, I'll tell you this much. Very passionate people, and now we're generalizing, but, in general, very passionate people. And they love, the men love fighting. Yeah. And it is something that they also grow up with. Yes. You will be hard pressed to find a 30-year-old Congolese that hasn't done either judo or boxing in his life, and it is advocated like we would do rugby in South Africa as a sport.
Right.
They
do fighting or so. Yeah,
that's it. So
in the culture,
exactly, and also because they are a war-torn country or was a war-torn country, I think that strategy is and that being a warrior is still in their DNA.
Well, it definitely brings somewhat of a different mindset, when it's been so much warfare there. That's going to have some sort of trickle-down effect in the society, which is going to give them a different mindset when it comes to combative sports.
Exactly. Yeah. And it is a fact. We look at it, and me and the wife were lying in bed the other day and watching the last UFC that was on, and a Brazilian, Burns, fought extremely well. And she's like, but why are the Brazilians so good? Yeah. I said, it's a simple reason. They've got a pick of two sports, either football or MMA, to get them out of the favelas, to get them out of poverty. Yeah. It's the same in the Congo. That is one of the ways they get themselves
one of the ways to get out. Yeah.
That's it. So they are literally fighting for their life.
What's happening with one that comes to mind is Champion Dolce, who went over to the UFC. How is he doing there now? I haven't heard anything.
So he had his first fight in the UFC, scored a massive knockout because he's a powerful guy.
I saw that on YouTube afterwards. Yeah.
And then the UFC is not Mickey Mouse at all.
No.
So it's the luck of the draw when you have your first fight, because it's unknown against the unknown entity. Yeah. And sometimes you get the best of it, like Champion did. But once you move to the second tier, that entity is now not as unknown. Yeah. He's definitely won one or two fights in the UFC. So Champion got up to a guy, and I think he got knocked out eventually in the second round. Yeah.
See, I almost shouldn't have asked, because I have this, I have this image of him being indestructible. I've seen every fight that he's had in the EFC, and
Yes.
the guy just appears to be inhuman. He appears to be indestructible. So shame on me for asking. I didn't want to hear that he got knocked out.
Yeah, it's one of MMA is one of these sports. It develops very rapidly, and as an athlete, you should develop as well. And nothing pushes you harder to learn and acquire new skills than a loss.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to definitely come back stronger and better.
Well, he's definitely not a quitter. He's got heart like you wouldn't believe.
I don't know. I don't know if it's heart or stubbornness.
Aren't they the same thing?
True. So I mean, I've seen guys, and I remember I refereed the fight, and his opponent was still very upset about it. And it's something that Big John McCarthy, the UFC referee, said, and it's something that Mark Goddard reiterated as well, also UFC. And the thing is, what they say is, if you are still in the fight, they will let the fight go on. So that is
Yes.
one of my mantras as a referee. So if I look in your eyes and you are looking back at this opponent and saying, I am still going to beat you, I am still in this fight, I will let it go. And it's basically, you have to switch his lights off before he's not in the fight anymore. That's the only way you get him out of the fight.
I think I know what fight you're referring to. I saw that, and there was a lot of controversy about that. But the way I always look at it is, it's one thing to be watching these things on TV, but you guys are right there on the ground, right? You're literally catching their blood and sweat on your shirt front as
Yes.
this is going on. So you see their eyes. You see how much there they are. You see if they're starting to fade out. You see if they're still there. And for the audience, or for the public to second guess you guys' decisions on whether or not a fight is stopped, I think they're overstepping their boundaries. I think they're putting emotion into it, whereas you guys are standing right there, right in the middle of it, and you see the facts.
So, the one thing is, and it's very difficult. So, it is something that all referees will echo, is sometimes you have to protect a fighter from himself. Where you don't enter a sport like MMA being a quitter, So a lot of the times the referee have to rescue you from yourself, because you do not know when to quit.
I see.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So that happens a lot of the time. But your fans that's sitting in the seats do not want to see their fighter lose. They do not want to see their fighter lose. But once you've dealt with fighters dealing with CTE and brain damage and all of that, you've always got that in the back of your mind. So you want to give the fighter the most opportunity and every single second for him to come back.
Right.
But you also have to keep that back in their mind. So I'm not saying we always make the right calls, but I can honestly say with any official that I've worked, none of the officials have made a call apart from basing it on the safety of the fighter. Sometimes we can say, maybe the guy could have taken 2 more shots. Agreed, he could have taken 2 more shots. But that referee or that official made the call, with
the safety of that fighter in their mind.
100%.
Well, you guys have a rough job. Like I told you before, it's hard for me to put words on it, but you portray a certain amount of, it's a strange combination that I see in you and other referees or officials. It's a combination of awareness, authority, compassion. I don't know how to put it into words, but you guys have such an important job, because you literally have the safety of these guys. I mean, it's a brutal sport, and you guys have their safety in your hands. Have you ever been in a situation or ever officiated a fight where it did something to you emotionally?
I can tell you. I mean,
that's a tough question to answer. Maybe I'm kind of digging on your heart a little bit, but
no, I can tell you. So the events would normally finish at about 12 o'clock at night. Sometimes just after 12 o'clock, and then you go to your hotel room if you have travel, or you go back to your house. And I would come home to my family, and they would be, how was it? We're going to bed. And I wouldn't be able to sleep, because you are going to run every decision still past in your mind. And if you don't do that, then you're not passionate enough about the sport, and you shouldn't be official.
Very well said.
So you're going to run, and there's a few fights that I've had in my mind, and the one is probably a sexist comment, but I'm going to say it because it was two female fighters, and it was basically, the difference was stopping it one punch earlier or one punch later. And the punch that landed was so vicious, was so hard, that it basically turned the neck of the opponent into complete nothingness, like butter, like rubber. And it is an image that is still haunting me in my head when I saw the head bounce off from the side, and I'm like, I should have stopped that earlier. But if you go and look at the replay, stopping it earlier would have been the wrong call as well.
I understand. It's a fine line. It's a fine line. You have to balance.
It really is.
Which fight was that?
That was Jackie Trossi, if I'm not mistaken, against Amanda Lino.
Demolition Jackie and Amanda.
That's it. Yeah. There we go.
I remember that fight. Yes.
Yeah, and we as a official, you try and be impartial, but you cannot help but learning or getting to know the fighters, because you with them, and you make calls with them. So we do not harbor, as official, we do not harbor any vengeance against any fight. And you get to know, and you're like, man, I get to know these two people that's now going to face off against each other. Yeah. They're both really exceptional human beings. I don't want any one of these to lose. No. But there has to be a winner, there has to be a loser. Yeah. And I can tell you this much, I pray every time before I walk into the ring for the stoppage to not be me doing the stoppage. I would like to see a tap. I would like, a clear stoppage.
All the way to completion without you having to stop it. Yeah, I understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I think every athlete deserves a clear and concise finish, to go back and say to the drawing board, this is what I've done wrong, or this is what I've done right. But if they had that in their mind, where they go back and they say, their official was shocking, I could have done better. I don't want to be that official. I never want to be that official. Sometimes you are, but I try and not be. I hope that I can see a clear tap, the fight is over, and everybody agrees that's the way it goes.
So it's not just some meathead sport. There's a lot of thought that's put into what you do as an official. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of technical skill and whatnot. And that's what I want to get out there for people to understand. It's not just a couple of guys or ladies rolling around the mat beating each other up, and there's somebody there to break it up if it gets too bad. That's not what it is. There's so much rules. There's so much precision in the way you have to make your decisions.
Exactly. I mean, you see, when it comes to the medical protocol, is really, really on par with any other promotion that's on there. And I can say that because I've been to the UFC. I can tell you it is on par. And that's brilliant. We need to have that there. But when it comes to about the meathead sport, I can tell you we've got doctors competing. Danella, she's a psychiatrist.
Yeah, exactly.
She should have a head red for competing in the sport. We've got Bunmi, she's a orthopedic surgeon. So we've got all of these. So it's not a meathead sport.
What about?
I'm not saying it's a rational sport, but it's not a meathead sport.
Well, even the highest educated man or woman has moments of savagery. So
exactly,
we have to let it out at some point.
Yes.
Let me ask you about a fighter, DeMarte Pena.
Yes.
Is he gone? He's. I understand there was some controversy there, and we don't have to talk about that if you don't want to. But is he finished? Is he finished in the EFC, or is there an avenue for him to come back?
So I'll tell you this. I know DeMarte for a couple of years before the EFC even existed.
Okay.
So the one thing I can tell you about DeMarte, he's always been a gentleman.
He seems to be.
Outside of the cage, always a gentleman. Great fighter as well. Great athlete. Hard worker. So what happened is he tested positive for a banned substance.
Yeah.
Okay. He refuted that allegation, and I don't know if it's true or not. I'm never going to go and ask a guy, if it's true or not.
No.
So, but I know what they did say is it was tainted supplements. So they sent in the supplements, and you would know in powerlifting as well, you've got WADA, which is the World Anti-Doping Agency, but then you've got your local agencies feeding into WADA. So in South Africa, it's SAIDS, South African Anti-Doping Agency.
Yes.
So he sent the samples of the products that he used. Then SAIDS locally found that it was a tainted sample. They strip him of his title, but say it was not his fault. It was a tainted sample.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what happened is he says, okay, well, title is stripped, but I'll come back and fight for the title again. Subsequently, he did that. But, red tape.
And that was a great fight, by the way.
That's it. And bureaucracy takes time. So what eventually happens is WADA turned around after that fight and said, listen here, on that initial incident, we do not agree with Sage on this. We are saying he should have been found guilty.
Really?
So he was caught once for tainted supplements, and he was stripped twice because of it.
Wow.
So,
I don't want to badmouth WADA, but that's a strange decision.
Yeah, so they overruled the local authority on that.
Wow.
And subsequently, there's been a few other calls like that as well in South Africa with regards to SAIDS and WADA.
So is he under suspension now?
No, he's retired.
He's retired.
He's running his own gym, and he also started his own promotion. So he's doing amateur promotion. So he's putting a lot back into the sport.
He seems to be a highly educated, very thoughtful person. So I think he's going to do quite well with whatever he decides to do.
As I say, I don't think he's a stupid human being at all. He's always been a gentleman. He knows how to treat people. And I think if he puts his mind to it, he will definitely be successful at it.
Interesting. I just thought I'd ask about him. It just kind of fell into my head that I hadn't seen him on any of the EFC productions in quite some time. So I just thought to ask.
He does some color commentary for the EFC every now and again.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
Because he's an eloquent speaker.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
and he seems to have a good sense of humor too. He's not afraid to laugh once in a while. So.
I mean, and that's a nice thing about the sport. And I think you can say the same about powerlifting. You meet people that you would not have met if it wasn't for the sport.
Absolutely. The time when I was on the U.S. Masters national team and I got to travel and meet people, 'cause I'm in such a weird situation living here in Norway, but I was on the national team. So I didn't get to meet some of those team members and get to know them like I wanted to. We had the North American Championships in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And I got to meet the team there. And it was just such a great experience to meet them, to hang out with them, and broaden my horizons when it comes to powerlifting, because this was very early in my powerlifting career. I mean, I'm an older guy, but I've only been powerlifting competitively since 2015.
But you've been training for years.
But I've been training. Well, I'm lucky. I think I told you the story of I was a bodybuilder there in Chicago at Quad's Gym. Actually, not the one in Chicago, but the one in the south suburbs, Quad's Gym. And my good friend Ed Cohen trained there. And
legend, absolute legend.
Oh gosh, and you know what? Besides him being the powerlifter that he is, the human being that he is to me is even greater. He's one of the nicest, sweetest, most gentlemanly and giving people. He helped me try to help my son, who was in the middle of some addiction problems, and Ed did a couple of things to try and help me out with that. And that just shows what kind of person he is. So above and beyond the powerlifting, he's a good man. But anyway, I was training as a bodybuilder at that gym, and he was so kind as to invite me in to powerlift with him and his crew. So that's where I got the fundamentals especially of my squat and deadlift. That's from training with him.
Yes.
And so I had that bodybuilding physique, but I had that powerlifting strength. And I've just built on that through the years. And it got to the point where Ed Cohen's wife, actually, she is the one that introduced me to my wife. They've been friends. They've been friends since they were kids. But Ed Cohen's wife is also one of my best friends, and she's the one that convinced me, finally, after years of telling me that I should powerlift, she finally convinced me to jump into powerlifting. So I did that in 2015, and it just took off because I already had that foundation 100%. Based on those concepts that I learned from Ed before.
Yeah, if you go back to bodybuilding, I remember squatting and all of that. And up to a certain level, then the bodybuilders will tell you, stop squatting. It's wide.
Yes.
Yeah, it's widening your waist, it's whatever. And I was stupid enough back in those days as well. I was like, no, but I enjoy squatting. And that's probably one of the reasons why I had to go to powerlifting as well. But you getting that technique and that foundation with Ed Cohen, I mean, I think it prepared you beautifully for both both avenues, powerlifting and bodybuilding.
Absolutely. It's definitely a blessing that I ran into him all those years ago, and to still be friends with him to this day, and to be practically best friends with his wife. My wife and we fight about who is best friends with Ed's wife. so it's a nice, my kids almost look at her as an aunt, and my son, the one that passed, really looked up to Ed back in the day. So it's a tight connection there, and that's the beauty of sports. There's again, it's not just this meathead thing where, it's all blood and guts and sweat and tears. That's part of it as well. But there's also the emotions. There's also the friendships that you build and all of that. Now, you have a background in sports psychology? Is that it?
No, I've got a background in psychology and sociology. So
okay, and you apply that education to sports activity. Okay, yeah. So you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. So now what I want to do is, I've done the sports side of it, the sports science side of it, but I've also done psychology. But I've realized, I can get my guys fit. I can get them the best technique, but there's still a chink in their armor. If they walk on their way to that cage and they are not mentally in the right frame of mind, doesn't matter how fit they are, doesn't matter how good they are, they will not win that fight. And as a referee, I see it many times. I would have refereed a guy 3 or 4 times and get his demeanor, get his body language, and then one evening I would referee him again and look at him and I'm like, something is off.
You can see it in his eyes,
You can see it in his demeanor. You can see how he's prancing up and down. You can see how he holds his head. And those things all tell you there's something different. It might not always be negative, but you can pick it, there's something different.
I see that in powerlifting. If I'm watching a powerlifting competition, especially in the squat and the deadlift, you can almost see it in that lifter's eyes as they approach the bar, whether or not they're going to make that lift, because a lot of it has to do with confidence. And if they're lacking
100%.
Confidence in that moment, you will see it in their demeanor.
Exactly. If you walk on there and, if you walk onto that weight and you do not feel confident, you do not have the almost utmost extreme confidence that bar will lift, then you might as well turn around and not even attempt that lift. If there's even a shadow of a doubt, you're not making that lift.
Yeah, you can't be afraid of that lift.
No.
I'll never forget that feeling. I miss that. I need to get back. I need to get back on the platform. I may have maybe a 20 kilo bench, but I want to get that 360 kilo squat.
We do what we can do. That's what I've learned.
Exactly.
Now that I'm older.
Exactly. That's what I say to people. They ask me, are you finished now with powerlifting? No, far from it. Eventually I'll get my shoulder to a point where I can tolerate having a straight bar on my back, and then I'm going to be right back in it. I won't be able to bench, but I can still squat and deadlift. Got to do what I can.
Yeah. So if I might ask, what is the prognosis now on your shoulder? Because I've been following your training, and it's been inspirational for me. Number one, you're a little bit older than me, and number two, I've got injuries, you've got injuries, but you've got currently dealing with a severe injury that inhibits all of your movement with regards to powerlifting.
My injury,
difficult.
This is very difficult. This, and then there's a psychological part of me that's been affected besides the physical part of this. I'll tell you about that. Now, this shoulder injury is extremely brutal. I am currently the only patient in Norway who has had this type of operation. What they did was, there's a doctor at the Mayo Clinic in the United States who who invented a new procedure where they take an Achilles tendon from a cadaver.
Okay, good cadaver at least.
Yeah, and they place it in place of, if you know anatomy, which I'm sure you do, but for the listeners, there is a series of muscles in the rotator cuff, and one of them is the infraspinatus.
Yeah, and the biggest culprit when it comes to shoulder injuries.
Yes. Now I have a ruined infraspinatus and a supraspinatus. Both of them are gone. And my teres minor it's still there, but it's ineffective.
Hanging on a thread
and dead material, narcosis, what do you call that? Necrosis around it.
Yeah.
And so this Achilles tendon has been, what they did, they took my trapezius on my left side and they sliced it in half,
Oh, that sounds brilliant.
Attached, you can see in the camera now, I'm not raising my left arm. I can't do it. And then attached that Achilles tendon there and wrapped it around to the front of my shoulder. And that Achilles tendon is supposed to replace all of the function of the infraspinatus and the teres minor.
Okay. And I mean, your rotator cuff, the function of that is to keep your shoulder in position, and that's why you've got three through the rotation
Exactly.
to keep it. It's not to lift anything; it's just to keep it in position.
Just for stability, yeah.
That's it.
So you could say I have zero stability, and that's why I don't have. It could be that I have the strength to raise my left arm over my head, but because it's so unstable, I can't even begin that motion to raise my left arm over my head. And then all inward and outward rotation, I have none of that. So the idea is that I will somehow be able to activate that Achilles tendon so that it will function as a stabilizer and as a fulcrum for rotation in my shoulder. The problem is because that's foreign material. It's from a cadaver.
Yes.
My brain does not have the neurological signals, the electricity, if you will, to activate that. So that's what we've been doing ever since the operation was the 28th of May last year. And
that's a full year.
It's a full year, and it's been pain the entire time. Now, I walk around without any pain medication. Because
I hate pain meds.
Yeah, I need to feel what's going on back there. And that's partly so that I don't overtrain, because if I numb the pain, I might overtrain.
Exactly.
But it's also just the what it does to my head if it's a strong painkiller. And I don't want to be sleepy. I want to be functional and all that stuff. So that's the situation with my shoulder. But my goal is, again, I don't think I'll ever be able to bench more than maybe 50 kilos at some point. But I just want to get my stability back so I can get under the squat bar again and be able to deadlift as well.
And get the mobility and the movement in there.
Yeah, because as it is now, I have no mobility at all, no stability at all. So it's been a fight. That's been my job, basically. That's been my training routine for the last year is physical therapy, sometimes 3 days a week, sometimes 3 times a day. I'll just camp out at the hospital and bring a book to read and some lunch, and I do like a 20-minute long session with an hour-long break, and then I go back.
Yeah.
So it's been a very intense round, but the benefit is that I am the only patient. It's almost like I'm the experiment. I'm the science rat.
And they look after you because they want to be able to prove concept.
Exactly. That's what I was going to get to, is I'm getting so much follow-up. I got a lot of experts around me. My physical therapist is a genius. The surgeon herself is a genius. And I have kind of an unusual amount of contact, or an unnormal amount of contact with the surgeon, because she really wants to know how things are going. So I've got a good team around me, and that's what it is. It's a team. So I'm fortunate in that sense.
Yeah. I remember when in the sports that we compete in, contact sports and powerlifting and all of that, injuries happen, and some of them are a little bit more permanent than others.
Yeah.
And when I tore my pec, it was a severe injury for me. I've torn bicep partially, I've torn calf partially, but when I tore my pec, it was bad. And
you knew that was something different then. Yeah.
And they gave me pain meds. Now I must what was it? I must get onto the name, but also extremely strong.
Yeah.
And they were telling me 3 a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. And I took it for the first 2 days. And after that, I'm like, no, I'd rather live with the pain than living with this haze in your head. It was. They
put me on crazy. Oxy, I don't know if it was OxyContin or OxyNorm, Oxy something or other, a strong opiate after this last operation. Now, I stayed at the hospital for 2 days. So during those 2 days, I was pretty doped up, and that was actually fine. I needed that. And when I came home, they expected me to take those opiates for anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. I took them for two more days after I was home, and then I quit. Because I needed to, to me, the healing process started already when I came home, and I can't heal properly if I can't feel what's going on.
It.
Exactly. Yes. But it's also the mental side. I cannot numb my mind. I need to begin to visualize my recovery, and I couldn't do that under medicine.
And it's also, as a powerlifter and as a bodybuilder, the mind-muscle connection. You lose that with that haziness in your head. That mind-muscle connection will not happen. I remember now, I was on Tramoset. Tramoset was a pain medication that I was on. Also an opiate. And I've still got it actually somewhere in the house, and I'm like, I will never take this again. I don't know for what. Why am I keeping it? Maybe if one day I'm dying, I'll take that just to numb the pain in that.
Well, I tell you, I'm very wary. I'm very careful when it comes to opiates, even when it's at the suggestion of my surgeon, because it's just a nasty medicine. You look at the problem in the United States. There's not much talk about it now, but opiates are destroying people over there.
And over-the-counter opiates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
not the recreational type.
And my son's addiction was to heroin, but he also would get a hold of these prescription, doctor prescribed opiates and whatnot. It's an evil medicine. I mean, it has its purposes, obviously, but it's so easy to abuse. So I've always, irregardless of my son's addiction problem, I've always shied away from that medication. It's just too scary. It's too easy to get addicted to it.
Very easy, and partly is because your body is readily accepting it. They've got receptors everywhere, and your body likes it.
Oh well,
that's the problem.
Well, I can, like I said, I was in the hospital for 2 days after that operation, and it felt pretty doggone good to be doped. I mean, and it is funny. We can laugh about it, but seriously though, it feels good. That opiate rush, that feeling of tranquility and otherworldliness. I mean, it's too easy to fall into that, and all of a sudden you're an addict.
I can tell you a funny story. When me and the wife started dating, the first official date that we went on, we went quad biking. And it wasn't probably the greatest thing to go and do. And she had a bit of a nasty accident and a bit of a nasty tumble with the quad bike. And she, as the quad bike rolled, she put her hand out, and she's a small human being. She's not a big person at all. And she puts her arm out, and the quad bike rolled over her arm. She snapped the arm clean and dislocated her shoulder and got concussion.
Oh, boy.
Now, we probably had a 30K off-road track to get back onto the main road to get to the hospital.
Wow.
And I remember when we got to the hospital, she was in this jacket, and the doctors were trying to remove the jacket. And I'm like, you're not going to be able to remove the jacket. And they eventually cut it off. And this was on a Sunday afternoon. And they said to me, the surgeon will only be here on Monday afternoon. We will have to give her some pain meds. I'm like, well, give her something. And I could see, I mean, she was being strong, but I could see the tear running out of her eye. And I said, geez, just give her something. And they injected morphine. And as they injected morphine, I saw her eyes cross, and I saw this dry smile on her face. And I'm like, okay, she's content now. and because of the 2 days of morphine she was on, she quit smoking.
Oh, really?
Quit smoking. That craving was gone because the
morphine replaced it. Yeah,
completely, and that's how strong it is.
It's a scary drug. I mean, it's a necessary drug in certain medical situations, but it is scary. I mean, it feels so good.
Exactly. And you have to realize, we do powerlifting and we train, and we release endorphins. And the morphine goes to exactly the same receptors. So we are happy with that receptors being fulfilled.
That is an advantage that I am very well aware of. One of the things I do in preparation for, not even just in preparation for a powerlifting competition, but for training. Let's say I'm training on a 12-week cycle, and I'm at week 8, so the weights are starting to get heavy. I will go through a mental exercise to psych myself up. I'll visualize the lift as if I'm lifting it in a competition, and I get that adrenaline rush. And I can very easily say that it feels exactly the same as getting an intravenous dose of an opiate after an operation. It is the exact same.
It doesn't last as long.
No, it doesn't last as long. But when it hits you, that little 5 second, I'm actually getting it now just talking about it.
Goosebumps.
Yeah, but it might last for about five seconds.
Yeah.
And I tell you, it's an art form for an athlete, because imagine if, as a powerlifter, like what I do, I can call up that feeling as I approach the bar and I complete the lift.
Exactly.
And what a kick it gives! I bet it adds at least 10 kilos to any lift I do.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing is, when you go and you go back to mixed martial arts, as an athlete winning, you go through your 3 rounds or your 5 rounds and you win that fight. It is an emotional high. It is a physical high that it is very difficult to explain to anybody. And I think, when we talk about meat eats in the sport, people do not realize how powerful and how strong that feeling is.
Yes.
And where we're talking now about 5-10 seconds feeling, I think for an athlete like that, it boosts even more because the crowd is going crazy.
Yes.
You come home, everybody's on a high. But then you look at the inverse of that. When your receptors are ready to get that feeling and you have a loss, the highs are beautiful, but the lows are the lowest lows that you can find. No matter who your team is, no matter who your friends are, you are alone in that situation. And it's very tough for athletes, I can tell you that much.
Well, life as an athlete it seems to be quite polar. You're either feeling completely alone and like the biggest loser, and even successful athletes can get that loser feeling if they don't reach the goals that they've set for themselves. So even the greatest athletes can be incredibly depressed and dissatisfied with themselves. So you either have that or you have that indescribable high where you have so much love and support from your team around you and stuff. And there's nothing that can replace that. There's nothing that I've ever found that can replace that.
And people that haven't competed at that level do not understand
They won't understand it. I try to describe for people when I set the record for the Norwegian raw squat last year. And people ask me, well, how did that feel? And I cannot put words on it. I can't describe it. There's maybe a 10-minute period after that is very hazy for me. I can't put words on what I said, what I did, how I felt, who I talked to, because it's a level of emotion. It's a level of it's emotion, but it's so much deeper than regular in quotes regular emotion. I can't put words on it. It's indescribable.
And it's a happy place you return to each time you have to dig deep to do that training, because you go back and say, I want that feeling again. And I'm only going to get that feeling by pushing through this.
That is so good that you say that, because it is. And that is something that elite athletes can do. They can call that feeling up again at their behest. And it serves us well. It serves us well.
That's your driving force.
Absolutely.
As an athlete, you are a selfish person because you are spending more time on yourself than you're spending for a reason. And yes, your why might be to secure a future for your family and whatever. But whilst doing that, as an athlete, you cannot be the nicest guy around. Even though there are some athletes you spoke about Ed Cohen, there's some nice guys around. But I can tell you, when they are focusing in that 6 weeks, and I deal with the families of a lot of the athletes of my fighters as well. And I can tell you, there's many wives that come to me in the last week of preparation and they tell me, just take him home with you. I don't want him at my house. He's an arsehole. And, many times you will see athletes thanking their family and their wives when they're inside. And that's the reason.
And they mean it too. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it's not an easy family life when you're an elite level athlete because of the time that it demands. Absolutely. And I guess I'm very fortunate, and I'm sure you can attest to this as well. Having a wife who understands your passion for sport. That is so important, a wife or a girlfriend, because if that relationship isn't solid and if there's not a level of understanding beforehand, then that relationship, either the relationship or the athletic career, is going to suffer. Go ahead.
I've got two friends in Cape Town, and the female was a very high level female bodybuilder. And the husband was not bad either. But they would used to compete in the same competition, same preparation cycle. And eventually, Omono used to come to me and say, I'm quitting bodybuilding. I'm like, why? You're in great shape. He says, if me and Mary have to prepare for the same comp again, we will kill each other. So she's better than me at it. I'm supporting her. And, he made that call, and he was right. I mean, she was a very high-level athlete, and, I mean, I've seen her go crazy, and you're deprived of everything when you're a bodybuilder. So, that's the call that you have to make.
Yeah, it takes a certain level of communication. It takes a solid relationship to be able to navigate through those challenges. It's not an easy life being an athlete. It's not.
No. People don't realize that.
Wow. This is so cool to be talking to you. I never thought when I go back to, what happened was we had moved to a new house. So we got a new cable TV service, and on that cable TV service was a sports channel. What's it called? I think it's called Extreme Sports. And on that Extreme Sports channel, they show EFC fights.
Yes, and it was delayed. I remember back in the day you were talking about fights, and I'm like, but that happened like 2 years ago.
Exactly. Good point. Good point. Now, here's something that they do in Norway that just drives me absolutely bonkers. Like you say, I'm referring to a fight that happened 2 years ago, but Norway does that. They will show, the EFC fight series from 2017. And then I'm thinking, okay, in a couple of weeks here, they're going to move on to 2018. No, they'll go back and play 2017 again. And it's so frustrating. And they'll do the same thing with TV series. There's an American TV series called Chicago PD. Yes. And I think, have you seen it?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. I love that series. But they were stuck on season 4 and 5. For 3 or 4 years here. They would just show season 4 and then season 5 and then back to season 4. And it just drives me absolutely nuts. Yeah. But since then, I've gotten a new cable TV channel. I can't remember what it's called, but they show EFC as well. And they are more up to date, and they show each EFC event.
Okay.
So I can look forward to the next EFC event. So now I'm more updated. But for a while, man, it was 2017 over and over and over again.
It was funny the first time when we were speaking about EFC, and you were telling me you were Norway. Number one, American. So when you think American, you think, why would they watch EFC? Because they've got the UFC, number one.
Yeah.
And then, okay, you're in Norway, and then you're watching old fights, and it's like, well, you're watching old fights, you're still passionate about it. So, it was great to see. And, yes, the UFC is definitely the top tier of it. Yeah. But I can tell you that we've pushed a few athletes from EFC to the UFC.
Sure.
And those athletes come in with just as much heart. They put just as much on the line as what the UFC guys do. I fully agree with you. They're not on par. But some of them do get on par. That's why
exactly.
How we got some of the guys in there.
And the competition amongst the EFC fighters is quite exciting. I mean, it's good quality fights. There's not. Exactly. I can't say anything. I'll put it to you this way. I make an effort to watch EFC. I am a fan of EFC. I don't watch UFC. I don't watch UFC. I'll if something crazy happens and people are talking about it, I'll go in on YouTube and catch a clip of it.
Yeah.
But my fandom goes to EFC. I like what you guys are doing. It's a great organization, and the fighters. I mean, it's great entertainment, and I have a passion for it. You said something about I showed my passion in our discussions that we had. That's because I respect the sportsmanship. I respect the athlete. I respect the work that they do. I can identify with that, even though I've never done mixed martial arts.
Yeah. I think now that we're talking, I think I will send you an EFC care package so that you can put it up somewhere in your studio at least.
You should do that, my friend. Well, you know what? Just for the people who are listening, I've discussed with you coming out there to South Africa. That's how curious. I told you in the beginning of this episode that I've always been very curious about South Africa, about what it's like there, the society, the racial makeup, and just everything about South Africa. So there was a time where we were talking about about me coming out there. And I haven't dropped that thought. It's just that I've been so preoccupied with these operations on my shoulder and whatnot.
Sure.
But one day I'm going to come to South Africa with my family. I have to experience that.
I'll tell you this much. We have a lot of problems in South Africa. Don't get me wrong. But we've also got a few things that you'll find nowhere else. And as a holiday destination, post-COVID, I still think it is a valid destination, especially for somebody that earns foreign currency.
Yeah.
So if you are earning rands or euros, South Africa is a cheap destination.
Yes.
Where you can get a lot of value for your money that you're going to struggle to find elsewhere. Yes, there is certain things that you need to be worried about. There is a little bit of security issues if you go outside certain areas.
Okay.
But that's the same as in the USA. There's certain neighborhoods that you must be careful.
Sure.
Brazil. I've got friends in Brazil. I still want to go to Brazil. And he's like, Brazil is fine. Yes, Brazil has got this massive murder rate, same as South Africa. But the locals know where those murders occur.
I see.
The majority of those occur. So he's like, I'll take you in the favelas. I'll take you there. We'll go through it and you'll be safe.
Yeah.
So it's the same as in South Africa. There's certain areas that you need to avoid. Yes, and we've got unrest but majority of the time, as a tourist, I think it's still a value-driven country to come to.
That's a good advertisement for South Africa. If things stop with your personal training, with your gym, you can be a travel agent.
Well, I'll take this podcast and send it to the Department of Tourism. Maybe I can get some value out of it.
Hey, I'm not that expensive. If they wanna sponsor me, hey, send them my way. I'll say whatever they want about South Africa.
I'll remind them of that. There's always a bed in the house. You're always more than welcome to come over.
Well, thank you for that. And likewise, I think I told you halfway jokingly when there were some issues over there in South Africa that you can come to our place.
Beautiful scenery. It's unbelievable.
Man. I've been here for almost 20 years, and I'm still not used to the scenery. It's just breathtaking. Did you see the picture I put up a couple days ago?
Of your place?
Of my place, yeah, across the bay and the water and then the mountain behind it and stuff. It's just, it still takes, that's my place. And I've been here for 20 years, but it still takes my breath away. It's just beautiful, man.
Yeah. We don't have something similar in South Africa with regards to those scenes. But we've got a place in South Africa called Hermanus. Beautiful mountain. Okay. Probably best whale viewing spot in South Africa. Beautiful beaches. Close to the wine country for the people that enjoy a good wine. There's so much in South Africa. Naturally, our climate is completely different than Norway. But beautiful scenery. But I mean, what you guys have is something that South Africa definitely does not have. We don't have that kind of scenery. We don't have the snow. We don't have.
Yeah, it really is breathtaking. I tell you, it's pretty amazing. I'm very fortunate to be here. I get homesick all the time. I want to go home so bad sometimes, but I have to admit, life is good here. I mean, I and my family and our kids are doing well. So.
Yeah, it seems you're enjoying life. I mean,
that's all I'm doing.
That's important. At the end of the day, nobody gets out of this alive. But it's important to enjoy while you are still at it.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Amen to that. Well, listen, Ferdy, I once again, I totally appreciate you coming on here. This has been a very surrealistic thing. I never in my life imagined I would ever get the chance to talk to you. And
it was great.
And having spoken to you, I say this to people when I truly mean it. I have so much respect for what you do, and you and I think so much alike. I'm going to call you brother from now on.
No, I appreciate that, and the same from this side. I mean, like I said, we've never physically met.
No.
But I know if we ever sit across a table from each other with no computer screen in between, we will be able to have the same chat.
Absolutely.
Like we would have now.
Absolutely, from the heart.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, listen, thanks a lot for coming on. I want you to enjoy the rest of your day. I hear your family in the background, so go give them a hug, and I'll do the same.
I will definitely do that. Send my regards to the family. And as I say, I think I'm putting a little EUC package together. You must send me your address. And
I'll do that.
post-COVID, I'll send it over to you.
How about if you hang on for a second? I'm going to sign off, and then I'll talk to you for a couple more minutes.
100%.
Just hold on right there. Okay, thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. Yet another great conversation with a great person. Bye, everybody.
I'm coming home. I'm coming home. Yes, I am. Yes, I'm coming home. I'm coming home. Yes, I am, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. Lord, I'm coming home.